Aloha, everyone. Good morning, panel of judges. Today, my team and I are proud to present our policy brief entitled Hawaii Property Tax Reform, Prioritizing First-Time Local Home Ownership. We are Team D, which consists of 4 members. I'm Maya Bonilla. I am an incoming 1L student at the UH Richardson School of Law.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Kugawan. I'm currently in the Scheidler Global MBA program at UH Manoa as well.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Hirai, and I'm a junior studying international politics and Chinese at Georgetown University.
Aloha, my name is Ivy Lee, and I'm a rising sophomore at the University of Southern California, majoring in political science on the pre-law track.
So just a quick rundown of our presentation today. First, Maya will discuss the issue and provide a quick background. Then Ivy will explain the existing policies and programs relating to the issue. After that, I'll talk a little bit about our online community survey that we designed and disseminated. And then Alyssa will speak a little bit about our policy recommendation, and we'll have a few closing thoughts.
So there is no doubt that purchasing a home in Hawaii has its different layers of challenges, especially for local residents. For my family, besides the requirements to qualify to own one, the price is one of the biggest hurdles that continues to prevent us from making this dream into a reality. Therefore, our policy brief revolves around the question, why are local residents priced out of owning properties in Hawaii? So a bit of a background of the issue. First, based on analyzed secondary sources, the current 0.28% property tax rate in Hawaii, which is the lowest in the nation, is incentivizing non-local residents to drive up housing prices. This is exemplified by a 2018 research study claiming that of the 23,000 vacation rental units accounted for, 52% were owned by non-residents. The quote on the slide states that in comparison to high tax states like California or New York, the Hawaii property tax rate makes it cheaper, thus easier to purchase second homes in Hawaii. Additionally, in 2018, Hawaii ranked 47th among the 50 states, including the District of Columbia, in home ownership rates for occupied housing units. Based on Figure 7, except for the Japanese and Okinawans, home ownership was low for all racial groups in Hawaii. Alarmingly, 6 of the 7 racial groups with low home ownership rates under the 50% rate had median ages below 27. It highlights how the younger generation are at the heart of the housing crisis in Hawaii. In terms of home sale prices, foreigners and mainlanders purchase homes at higher prices compared to local buyers, as shown in Figure 4. This data reveals that local residents are priced out of owning a property in Hawaii. Lastly, now that we are phasing out of the COVID-19 mandates and are expecting tourism in Hawaii to return to pre-pandemic conditions, it is also projected that Hawaii home prices will increase as foreign buyers return to the islands. We can only hope that it doesn't go up, as local residents would suffer the most from this.
So we would also like to acknowledge that there are existing policies and programs addressing the problem of resident housing, some examples being shown on this slide. We have branches such as the Hawaii Public Housing Authority, which works to provide affordable residency with no discrimination based on a waitlist process utilizing the Section 8 Subsidy Programs branch. We also have the proposition of the Aloha Homes Bill, which included non-restrictive 3% down payments for potential homeowners, 99-year leasehold tenures, owner-occupied, and in mixed land use communities. The bill, however, was deemed infeasible for Hawaii residents and did not move forward in the legislature. With all of these existing policies and programs, one might think that there would be more local residential homeowners, and yet Grassroots Institute of Hawaii reports 13,000 residents leaving in fiscal 2019, which is the highest negative net migration ever. These existing policies are outdated, limited in scope, and focus on specific interest groups such as the elderly and do not highlight residents in totality. Most of these issues include building more housing, and yet 1 in 7 homes are reported vacant, a total of 76,622 homes reported in 2020 specifically. Individuals also shared their stories with the Institute of living paycheck to paycheck and still not being able to afford cost of living. Therefore, despite these current existing policies and programs, residents continue to leave the island because of the inability to own housing. With that being said, we wanted to take it further and hear from family, friends, and locals in present. And together as a team, we organized a survey to hear directly from the heart of those who felt the same.
Our survey was designed to gather community input about opinions on affordable housing, particularly how people felt about the housing situation, opinions on the causes of the housing crisis, and to gauge support for our policy recommendation for an increase of property taxes to certain properties. The survey was open from July 12th to the 17th and open to those who are currently living in Hawaii or who have previously lived in Hawaii. On that note, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the many people in this room who took and shared our survey. Thank you so much. We were able to gather 80 responses, with the majority of our respondents between 18 and 34 years old and living in Honolulu County. As you can see, respondents living in Hawaii are nearly evenly distributed in their housing situation, while those living outside of Hawaii are primarily renting. I won't be able to share everything today, but as our results showed, we found that 93% of those believe that there is a housing crisis in Hawaii. Actually, almost half of the respondents showed that they pay more than the recommended 33% of their monthly income on housing. We also included an open-ended question about people's beliefs on the causes of the housing crisis, and 46% responded to reasons related to non-resident buyers, vacation rentals, second homes, and so forth. Finally, 71% said they would support a tax raise for vacant homes and second homes. Interestingly, and not surprisingly, most of those who didn't support the tax reform are earning over $100,000, but we have a lot of information on that. These results are extremely important because we could see the research we found being reflected in the responses from the community. Nearly 68% of respondents currently living in Hawaii said they plan to move out of Hawaii or they are highly considering moving out of Hawaii, while 75% of those who are living outside of Hawaii said they would love to move back if only Hawaii were more affordable. This shows the critical impact of out-of-state buyers and the dire need for solutions to the housing crisis.
Our policy recommendation is simple: a 1% flat tax rate for vacation homes, second homes, and short-term rentals. This number was chosen based on an existing UCLA study on the prospect of a vacancy tax in Honolulu. This study showed that a 1% flat tax rate provided the best balance of political and administrative feasibility while generating enough revenue for the Affordable Housing Fund under the Oahu Resiliency Strategy. Cities like DC, Vancouver, Oakland, and Melbourne have also successfully implemented similar vacancy tax policies. This proposed reform would increase state revenue, which can then be used to benefit the local community. Accounting for an assumed 50% capture rate and claimed exemptions, a 1% flat vacancy tax rate would generate $38 million in Honolulu alone. We propose that this $38 million be used to support existing down payment assistance programs, rental assistance programs, and infrastructure upgrades such as existing affordable housing units, roads, and water systems. This narrowly defined policy will better limit administrative confusion, gain more political support, and ensure an easier and more speedy implementation compared to alternative options like a graduated tax policy or public housing construction, which includes a large administrative burden or investment of public lands. Therefore, it would be most cost-effective to utilize the existing 40,000 vacant units on Oahu and incentivize these vacancies to be put back into the market for sale or long-term rent, rather than proposing the construction of more housing units at this time. Finally, housing is a critical human need. When we reduce housing to an investment opportunity, we lose sight of the basic human need to live in dignity and the ability to raise their future generations here in Hawaii.
Growing up as a local Hawaii resident, it saddens me that my family are encouraging me and my siblings to move away from home because of the lack of housing opportunities for us. That is why we, as Next Gen, are choosing to speak up as the future homeowners of Hawaii. Before we end our presentation today, we would love to extend our gratitude to the Odo Scholarship Program, our mentors, peers, and colleagues for their time, generosity, commitment, and support during these past 7 weeks. It was an absolute honor working with everyone. And this concludes our presentation. Mahalo for your time and for listening to us today. We would now like to open the floor up for questions or comments.
Well, first, let me say thank you so much for that great presentation. You clearly put a ton of work into it, and you touched on several different aspects of the housing issues in Hawaii. Since you did focus on the property tax increase for out-of-state vacation and other vacant homes, did you folks take a look at the residential A property tax rate that the city and county of Honolulu has had in place for the last 10 years or so?
Senator, you might want to explain it a little bit to them in case they haven't, or make sure they understand the connection.
Sure. So well, there are several property tax rates in Hawaii in the city and county of Honolulu, one of which is the sort of the standard tax rate, which is at 0.35% of assessed value. And there's a separate tax rate called residential A. If you're a non-resident, non-homeowner occupant for a property worth more than $1 million, and that is assessed at 1.05%. So it's actually 3 times the property tax rate of owner occupants. So it, in effect, there is a higher property tax rate on non-owner occupants today here in Honolulu. So I'm not sure where the $1 figure came from. That's actually lower than what exists today. But I mean, I suppose it could be increased to $2.05. Anyway, that's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah, we'll have to do further research on that. And also from what we found, I believe the enforcement aspect isn't too effective right now in Hawaii, including enforcement of, for example, illegal vacation rentals. And so we also wanted to look at using these tax revenues to better enforce these policies.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Like Senator Chang, I was very impressed with your wonderful research and very clear writing and oral presentation. So very well done. I feel excited that I moved back home to a place where so many wonderful young people are excited to solve our challenges so that we can all keep having our families live here. I have 2 teenage boys and I'm thinking, oh gosh, they're gonna live with me forever if they're gonna be in Hawaii. That's okay. So I do have a question about the category of second homes in Hawaii. It seems like a lot of people are interested in home ownership, but there are also a lot of people for whom either home ownership is not a goal or they are really happy to rent, but the rent prices have been so high. So I was wondering if you've looked into, or it might be worthwhile to look into, who owns second homes that are being rented to people who lived here. And is that something you'd want to scoop up in this kind of a tax? Or, might that be something you take out of the tax because it's a local person's business, or they're renting to local people who frankly will just get a pass through if this additional tax is for second homes that have sort of local residents renting. So I don't know the answer, but it was just a thought that came to mind because I know a lot of people rent versus want to own in Hawaii, and how does that affect it?
I think that's one of the things that we also have to look into, because I don't think we specifically look at the groups that are, owning second properties or who is renting second properties. So our goal, though, is our proposal is to encourage long-term housing for local residents. So hopefully that's that's what we aim for. That's what we the result comes into. But yeah, I definitely more research into that. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
And to just Ivy, go ahead.
Okay, but just to piggyback off Maya, recently the Maui County did kind of push for a increase in property taxes for second homes and short-term rentals, because about 70% of purchases in the housing community in 2020 were non-owner occupied. So in terms of your question in regards to who is primarily purchasing these second homes and renting it out to local residents, there is a large majority of them that are mainland people or foreign buyers. So Chelsea, if you want to continue off of that.
Right. I was also just going to mention that our policy proposal is specifically for empty homes, meaning that they are empty for more than 6 months out of the year. And it's kind of based off of other case studies we looked at in Vancouver, Oakland, Melbourne, where they've also had similar success.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Thank you. I appreciated your proposal, and I have a couple of questions. The first was, I wanted a little bit more detail, I think, on your $38 million that you've anticipated being generated. Specifically, where were you focused on using that money? Are you proposing that it go to first-time homebuyer assistance or down payment assistance or rental assistance? Can you tell me a bit more of that? I don't know that I understood clearly.
Yeah, so our policy idea is meant to benefit mostly local first-time homeowners. So we would like to use the revenue to support down payment assistance programs for first-time homeowners, for local residents, as well as existing rental assistance programs and infrastructure upgrades, since that will affect many local residents.
Okay, great. And did you, your first-time homebuyer assistance, did you do any research into the available programs that the City and County of Honolulu has for first-time homebuyers, and or the Hula May multifamily? It's essentially an interest reduction program that is available through HHFDC that allows first-time homebuyers beneficial interest rates. So either A, the City and County of Honolulu down payment assistance program that's available for people who make less than 80% of the AMI. I believe that that program is undersubscribed. That is to say, there's funds available, but people actually don't apply. And then the Hula May program. Did you do any research into that? And how would that play in those existing programs? How would that play into your proposal?
So yeah, you mentioned the City and County of Honolulu's down payment assistance program. So I did a brief analysis of all those programs. So what we discovered was that there are these existing programs, but like you said, people don't know about them. So I guess part of the proposal is also to encourage or to raise awareness of these programs, because we found in one study that they're really helpful. They support local home ownership. So definitely there are existing programs, but we want to encourage and expand these programs, encourage local home ownership. But thank you for mentioning that.
Great, thank you very much.
May I ask one general question? Because, you know, I'm getting into the older generation and you raised the question about awareness. What is the best way these days to communicate to our kind of next generation? So those in their 20s and 30s, if you wanted to get messages out to them, what's the best way to do it these days? Just would you mind sharing a couple of thoughts on that? Because I think this is relevant to a host of issues that we're dealing with, including global warming and food sustainability, all of that. Would you mind just if I ask that quick question while we have you?
Well, speaking from my experience and also what I've heard from my friends, social media can be very influential in spreading messaging, especially educational or informational messaging. If anyone from my team wants to add on, but for me, primarily news sources and also social media is a big one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Chelsea said. And I would also say reaching out to students, whether it be giving presentations at local schools or passing out flyers, I think can reach a lot of the younger generation.